As some of you already know, I own quite a few Nintendo Switch games, and for the most part, I have no regrets, other than the games we're going to talk about in today's video. Now, I want to preface this by saying none of the games I'm going to mention are actually bad. A few of them I just think are overpriced, some of them don't run particularly well on the Switch, and a few of them I just don't vibe with. So if I mention a few of your favorites, please don't be offended. I don't think they're bad, just some of them aren't for me. And if we want to make this video particularly interesting, comment down below one game that you personally regret buying and why. And your comment might help stop someone from buying a game they'll later regret. But before we get into it, I just want to thank today's sponsor, FlexiSpot. Now, I'm going to be honest, for a long time, I was a standing desk non-believer. I honestly just could not see myself standing to do work whatsoever. But the thing is, every single time I said that, someone would always tell me that getting a standing desk was life-changing. So I finally decided to do it, and FlexiSpot sent me one. And let me tell you, it is actually as life-changing as people told me it was. It has made such a difference. Even now, I am standing to do this video, something I would never do before because it took me so long to set up, and it's so freeing. I absolutely love this desk, firstly because I could completely customize it. There are so many different ones that you can get on Amazon with different style legs and tabletops to choose from, but also I just love how smoothly this moves up and down. As you guys can see, I have a ton of streaming gear on my desk, so the ability to move it up and down without damaging or causing anything to fall over was a must. And thankfully, this one definitely does that. Also, if you haven't noticed, I am incredibly short, so the desk being as low down as it is on its lowest setting has been such a relief. It means finally I can have my feet actually touch the floor and be able to do work at the same time. And not to mention the fact that the controls are so easy to use. You can set presets for your standing, for your sitting down, and a few in between if you want to as well, or you can just completely customize the height as you want. As I said, it's transformed the way I work, the way I stream, the way I film my videos, and I've been really enjoying my desk. So if you're interested in getting one yourself, there's a link in the description down below. First game on the list is Disney Dreamlight Valley. I can hear you guys now saying, Eeowna, you talk about this game endlessly. You play it all the time on stream. What do you mean you regret buying Disney Dreamlight Valley? I do regret buying it on the Nintendo Switch. As much as I love Disney Dreamlight Valley, I literally never pick it up on the Nintendo Switch anymore. Once you see the Nintendo Switch gameplay versus the PC and literally every other console gameplay, you can kind of start to see why I never load it up on the Switch. The Nintendo Switch just looks worse and runs worse. It has some frame drops, which I don't have on the PC, and there are some Switch exclusive bugs as well. However, I will say, if the Nintendo Switch is your only console to play Disney Dreamlight Valley, I do still think it's worth it, but is it the best way to play it? Absolutely not. Although one small tip that I did learn recently, if you're really struggling to decorate in Disney Dreamlight Valley using a controller, you can use the touchscreen, which is apparently a lot easier to do it. Next is another slightly controversial one, and that's Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olive Town. As I said earlier, I don't think this is a bad game. However, this is definitely not the best Story of Seasons game you can buy on the Switch. And when I started playing Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town, I really started to realize how much worse Pioneers of Olive Town was. On paper, Pioneers of Olive Town should have been another solid addition to the Story of Seasons franchise. It had everything we know and love from a farming sim, with an upgrade in graphics, and a lovely little town to go run around that is unlike any of the towns we've seen before. However, to me, this Story of Seasons game just kind of lacked character. And I also found it one of the most awkward in terms of its farming sim mechanics. Everything I did just seemed to take longer than any other farming sim I've played. I found the mining to be particularly slow, and then also the processing of materials. They didn't really give you any easy or quick way to do it, and it kind of started to feel like a bit of a chore. And the other thing was the town just kind of felt a bit dead. Even though you could run around it whenever you wanted, it just kind of lacked people, lacked character, and I didn't even find myself going into the town that much, let alone making friends or caring about any of the NPCs really. As I said, not bad, but when you compare it to other Story of Seasons games, it's definitely not the one I would recommend first. Next, I'm gonna lump Mario Golf and also Mario Tennis into one, and the reason why I regret buying them is I just love Switch Sports more. I feel like the release of Switch Sports kind of made those two games almost completely obsolete. Don't get me wrong, they have a few added mechanics that Switch Sports doesn't do in their respective games, but considering both of those games individually are full price games, I would definitely say go with Switch Sports. There's so much more variety in what you can do, the online is a lot of fun on there as well, and it's a much easier game to play with family and friends as well. And I'm not even sure Mario Golf even had a single player like campaign mode, which kind of made it feel like you could only play it with friends, but Switch Sports' online is a lot better. Okay, we're going back to the spicy takes. I regret buying Super Smash Bros. I know this is a fan favorite game, and if you were to ask me what one of my favorite GameCube games were, I would say Super Smash Bros. Melee, because it was. But for me, Smash on the Nintendo Switch just didn't hit the same. And it's not necessarily the game's fault, a part of it is where I am in life. One of the reasons I loved Melee was me and my brother would play it all the time. Sometimes we'd even have the neighbors over to our house just so we could play Smash Bros. All together. But for the most part, I play my Nintendo Switch by myself. And there was one point where I was trying to get good at Smash, but I ended up getting carpal tunnel and hurting my thumb from playing it. And I also found that the online mode was slightly laggy, which kind of took away from the fun of everything. So even though the game mechanics have stayed the same, they even put in the single player mode for you to play and have fun with. I think the fact that I had no one to play it with in my house just kind of meant that I never picked it up as much as I used to as a kid. Next, we have Super Mario Party. The reason I say I regret buying this is literally, was it only 2 years later? It might have even been a year later. We had Mario Party Superstars, which is better in literally every single way. Mario Party Superstars Day 1 had a better online system, it had better boards to play on, and way better mini-games. So unless you really need 2 Mario Party games in your lives, Mario Party Superstars is by far the better one, and I adore that game. I would go as far as to say it's probably in my top 10 games to play on the Switch. That's how much I love it. The next game we're lumping two together, and that is Hyrule Warriors and also the Fire Emblem Warriors. Was it Fire Emblem New Hope? I think it was officially called. Either way, both of those warrior games are into one. Now, these are not bad games, and I know what you're thinking, Eeowna, if you knew you didn't like Hyrule Warriors, why would you then go and buy Fire Emblem Warriors? Good point. I don't know why I thought it'd be different, but it wasn't. Firstly, I will say one thing that the Warriors games do so well is the story. I absolutely loved Breath of the Wild, but my main criticism was I wanted more cutscenes, and Hyrule Warriors does deliver that. It is chock full of cutscenes. In fact, there's over 2.5 hours of cutscenes in Age of Calamity, which is honestly wild. I just personally think I would have had just a good experience with the game if I had sat and watched the whole 2.5 hour cutscenes like a movie. At first, I found the Warriors gameplay to be kind of fun, but as the hours went on and you realized how long a game it is, it started to get incredibly repetitive, and I just found myself not really enjoying it by the end. And although the Fire Emblem's version of the game has a few differences to make it closer to the combat we knew in Three Houses, it just wasn't the same. In fact, I really didn't care for the story as much in Fire Emblem Three Hopes as I really wanted to. In Age of Calamity, I was already sold. I loved the direction the story was going in, but I really didn't feel that way in Three Hopes whatsoever. I don't think I got further than about 8 hours into the game till I gave up. Again, not bad games, I just didn't vibe with a very repetitive style of gameplay. Then we have Splatoon 3. I don't think I can really put into words why I don't enjoy Splatoon 3 nearly as much as I enjoyed Splatoon 2. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense. The game plays better in Splatoon 3, the game looks better in Splatoon 3, the maps are a lot of fun in Splatoon 3, And yet I rarely even boot up the game, even for Splatfest now, which used to be one of my favorite things in Splatoon 2. I think it has something to do with matchmaking, or the fact that because I haven't played the game in so long, I suck, making matchmaking less fun. But in general, I always find myself when I'm playing games like Turf War, either drastically losing or drastically winning. I don't seem to find myself in any close matches anymore, and I also find myself overwhelmingly losing a lot of the time. And I don't want to say I'm a sore loser, but it kind of gets to you when you're doing match after match after match and you're just getting completely obliterated. I also somehow seem to always pick the losing team when it comes to Splatfest. I'm always on the one that comes last place. Could it be me? Yes, probably. But I just feel like every Splatfest, I'm losing almost every single game. I do genuinely hope that the DLC coming in might reinvigorate my love for the game, or they do some tweaks with matchmaking to make it a little bit more fair. I think a large portion of the problem was I was playing it a lot around the launch window, and not a lot of casual players buy the game the day it comes out, so it might be better now we've had Christmas and time has gone on. But yeah, I just don't find it as fun as Splatoon 2, which really hurts because Splatoon 2 was one of my all-time favorite games. Back to some cozy games I didn't enjoy as much. Poco Life. Now we're circling back to the whole this is not a bad game, this is just a game that runs badly on the Switch. Poco Life is an adorable life sim, and it has a few elements I do really enjoy, particularly the fact that you can kind of make and customize all of your own furniture. I think that's such a fun thing to include in the game, and absolutely love it. My issue comes in two forms. On the Nintendo Switch, the villagers look kind of creepy. And the second thing is the load times. So not only are the graphics not as good as PC, what you would expect, but the load times between areas is really long. The main issue with this is the fact that the shops are in one area and you're in another area. So anytime you need to go to two of the main shops, which you'll be doing a lot in the early game, you have to sit through a loading scene. And I found after an hour or two that really started to grate on me because it was surprisingly long. And I feel like the gameplay loop made me pass through the two of them so often that it really got frustrating. I'm fairly sure I've heard that the load times aren't nearly as long on the PC or any other way you play the game, which is a redeeming factor, which is why I'm saying the game's not bad. It's just really, really slow on the Switch. Then we have Cuddly Forest Friends. This wins the award for the most adorable game I have ever had the pleasure of playing. My only fault with it is at full price, it's a little steep. It's a really cute game where you just look after and take care of all these cuddly little pets and they interact with each other. You can do mini games with them, you can pet them, you can feed them. It is all around adorable and a great game to have if you've been really missing Nintendogs. My main issue is the gameplay is really, really simple. And to charge, I think it's like 35 quid at full price, is maybe a little steep. However, if it's on offer, it's the same for Pokemon Snap actually. When both of them are on offer, worth it. Full price, less so. Keeping with a similar theme is No Place Like Home. The main reason I regret buying this on the Switch is it's definitely a game I think that's best played with a mouse. I found some things on the controller to be particularly frustrating in this farming sim. There's not really that much of a farming sim and more a cleaning up sim, which don't get me wrong, I love that about it. But one thing I struggled with the most in No Place Like Home was watering the plants. And I genuinely feel like that would have been made so much easier if I was using a mouse to kind of aim it rather than the controller. Other than that though, a really fun little game, but looks better on the PC. And to finish this list, we have WarioWare. WarioWare was one of my favorite games on the Wii. I had so much fun playing it. Me and my brother would always be in stitches laughing. And I remember both of us bobbing up and down to the music as it got faster and faster, just full on screaming. So when they announced it on the Nintendo Switch, I was so excited. And then I found out it doesn't have motion controls. It is purely done using a single controller, stationary, and just using the buttons. And I have never been so disappointed in my life because you know what the Nintendo Switch really lacks at the moment and what the Wii had so much of? Things with motion controls in them. I feel like other than the occasional game that uses it to shoot, like Splatoon 3, or also to aim like you get in the Zelda franchise, there isn't really much use other than Nintendo Switch Sports for the motion controls. In fact, they're almost pointless on the Switch. I wish they would have given us the option to toggle it on and off and had it as an option, so the fact it didn't have it at all made me very sad. That's it for the games I regret buying on the Switch, but if you want to see the games I'm looking forward to the most coming to the Switch, click this video here.